Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio, and good morning. It's February 2nd, Tuesday, 5:30 in the morning, Calgary, Alberta time. This is one child abuse survivor to another, and this is a 15-minute really quick chat this morning, and I'm glad you can be here. I do have a guest call-in number, and that's 917-889-3736 if you're interested in phoning in. And this is a great topic we're talking about this week. It's cutting and self-injury and self-harm, right? It's a topic that most people don't want to talk about, but it is happening. And I got this great information from Help Guide, www.helpguide.org, and the article is called "Cutting and Self-Injury." It's called "Self-Harm Help, Support, and Treatment." So I just think it's so important to cover this topic. So many people are suffering right now out there and are in this situation. And, if we don't talk about it, it's just going to keep going on and on and on. And I just want to be, a support person and just to say it's happening. And we really, if you know someone who's in this situation, there's ways that you can reach out to them and you can say, look, I've been reading up on this and I know how hard it must be for you, this sort of thing, right? So that's why I just thought we'd cover this week. It's just so important, and the article is very good. I really enjoyed it. So we'll get right to that. I just want to make sure everybody listens at their own discretion. This is a very sensitive topic, and it can cause triggering, and it can lead to people to relapse and fall back and have flashbacks and things like that. So that's why I just say listen at your own discretion. You know what's safe for you to listen to. And so if this topic, cutting and self-injury, self-harm, or issues of abuse, child abuse, any kind of abuse, domestic violence, child sexual abuse, if those topics are going to make you uncomfortable and just pause it, just put you in a bad place, please do not listen to the show. I'd rather you turn it off, go listen to something else, because this is really all about education, prevention, and awareness. And so I just think, we all have to be responsible for what we listen to. And I know if I don't like something, I just turn it off. I don't listen to stuff that I don't like. And if it makes me uncomfortable, I don't listen to it. So you be the judge of what you can listen to and what you can handle. And if you feel uncomfortable, please turn it off, do something else, It's just not worth it. So, that's why I just want to make sure everybody's aware that it's the right thing to do. So, but if you're comfortable with the topic and you're not uncomfortable with the issues surrounding abuse of any kind, then by all means, I'm glad that you're here. We'll get right into it because we only have a few minutes here. Yesterday we were talking about what is self-harm and the amount of people that are actually doing it. The numbers are staggering. They said that in this article, they said about 2 million people in the U.S. are self-injurers, and that's 2 million people. I mean, that's a lot of people who are out there self-harming themselves. I mean, that's terrible. And I feel my heart is with those people. And they said that really around the world, it's going on all the way around the world, and that the numbers are just unknown of how many people are actually self-injuring, self-harming themselves. And that's why I just feel that this is we really need to talk about this, right? How else are we going to make any kind of change in this if we don't talk about it? And if we don't look around in our own worlds and see who we can help, if you see someone who has these signs and symptoms of self-injury, you could just let them know I'm here, and just be there for them, because a lot of times people just need an ear. They just need somebody to talk to, and they can't find anyone who can help them to kind of come through those hard times, so that they might self-injure themselves. So I really think it's so important that we take a look in our own worlds and see who might be suffering with something like this, right? So we'll just continue right on in this article. I love this article, www.helpguide.org. And yesterday we talked about who engages in self-injury and just cutting and self-injury itself. And we'll look at types of self-injury today. Definition of self-injury: self-injury, self-inflicted violence, self-injurious behavior or self-mutilation is defined as a deliberate, intentional injury to one's own body that causes tissue damage or leaves marks for more than a few minutes, which is done to cope with an overwhelming or distressing situation, right? It's a way for people to cope. It's a very damaging way for people to cope, and that's why I know, there's hope out there. There are all kinds of coping. We did cover in some of the, the previous shows, ways to cope, and I have some good information and websites on that. And there's different ways that we can cope when we feel that there's no other alternative but to self-injure. You don't have to do that. There's ways to get around it, and I would highly recommend talking to a therapist, really, or a counselor, and or a support group. If you can't find a therapist that is working for you, or you can't find one that has been able to reach you, a lot of times you can get on these support groups. That like I belong to Child Abuse Survivors, a safe place for survivors and supporters, and there's people on there who have gone through the same or very similar things that I have, and it's very helpful to find someone to talk to that knows where you're at in your life and what you've been through, and they can offer resources and they can offer help, right? And try to pull you through so that you don't self-injure, right? It's so important. I cannot express it enough, right? It says here the most common self-injurious behaviors are cutting, branding, picking at skin, and hair pulling. Hitting, multiple piercing or tattooing, and drinking harmful chemicals. These are things that people do to themselves, and it's horrible. And not only do we have enough stress in life and enough abuse in our lives, a lot of people, including myself, suffer abuse in their childhoods and or in relationships. Maybe they had a great childhood, but then they're in a domestic situation, a domestic violence or abuse situation, and they suffer abuse, and then it manifests, and then they end up abusing themselves even more, causing more damage. And that's what I just want to reach out to everybody today and say, please don't do that. We've suffered enough. People all around the world have suffered enough, and I don't think we shouldn't be hurting ourselves. It's not good to keep going and damaging ourselves any further. I had a voice in my, and I think it was God talking to me saying, do not injure yourself. You've had enough in your life, and you just need to have a good life. And I just went with it, and thank God, because so many times people get down to the point where they're so low and so down that they will hurt themselves. And so that's what I'm saying. If you're someone out there suffering with this, realize you're not alone, first of all, and that there's ways to get help, and there's people that understand where you've been. And if you need resources and stuff that I don't mention on the show, I can help you, hopefully help you find them, right? So get a hold of me, and I can help you at least look for the information, right? And then it's up to you to do the work and get the help and reach out, right? It's so important. And until I started reaching out, I didn't realize how therapeutic it was. And really, I mean, my road to recovery has been a long one, but I made it. But the thing is, I would have probably made it a lot sooner had I really just reached out. I didn't really. I wish I would have had somebody telling me that. So. There's just all kinds of ways people self-injure themselves, and so it's just horrible. If you see someone, you suspect someone is self-injuring, please, reach out to them for sure. We'll look at reasons for self-injury. Why do they do it? Even though it is possible that a self-inflicted injury may result in death, self-injury is usually not suicidal behavior. The person who self-injures may not recognize the connection, but this act usually occurs after an overwhelming or distressing experience and is a result of not having learned how to identify or express difficult feelings in a healthy way, right? Sometimes the person who deliberately harms themselves thinks that if they feel the pain on the outside instead of feeling it on the inside, the injuries will be seen, which then perhaps it gives them a fighting chance to heal. They may also believe that the wounds, which are now physical evidence, proves their emotional pain is real. That was me. Although the physical pain they experience may be the catalyst that releases the emotional pain, the relief they feel is temporary. These coping mechanisms, in essence, are faulty because the pain eventually returns without any permanent healing taking place, right? So it's just not the way to do it. I realized that. I was, like I said in my show yesterday, I was, so close to self-injury, and I thought I wanted people to see the pain that was in my heart. I wanted to be able to say, look at what is going on in my heart. It was really just a cry for help, and I'm so glad that I didn't do it. And people wouldn't have cared anyway. That's the sad part. Not the people that I know. Excuse me, but it's so true, right? The people in my world wouldn't have cared anyway. So, nowadays I have some better friends and some good friends who would care. But back in those days, this was quite a few years ago, there was no one in my life that would have actually cared or even noticed. So I would have hurt myself for absolutely no reason, and it wouldn't have made me feel any better. So that's what I'm just saying. I'm just so adamant. Please don't hurt yourself. There's ways to cope. There's ways to cope, and you want to find some good friends that really care. And there are good people out there, believe it or not. So that's what I'm saying. We need to learn how to cope and learn coping mechanisms, find out what works for us, right? And learn how to deal with this so that we don't hurt ourselves, right? It's so important. It says self-harm serves a function for the person who does it. If you can figure out what function the self-injury is serving, then you can learn other ways to get those needs met, which will reduce your desire to hurt yourself. So it says, if it is difficult to understand the motivations behind self-injurious behavior, but a clearer picture develops when you hear the common explanation self-injurers give for doing it. It expresses emotional pain or feelings that I'm unable to put into words. It puts a punctuation mark on what I'm feeling on the inside. This is what somebody might say. Or, excuse me, it's a way, it's a way to have control over my body because I can't control anything else in my life, right? So it's kind of like a way that they can feel some control, right? But they're hurting themselves, and that's not a good control, right? It's a bad thing. I usually feel like I have a black hole in the pit of my stomach. At least if I feel pain, it's better than I feel nothing. So I've heard this before from people, and I'm telling you what, it's so true, right? People are feeling this, and that's why I think this show, if anyone's out there listening, I understand. I've been there, and I know people in this situation, and I know how hard it is, and that's why I just want you to know, if you think you're going to do it, you contact me. If you know how to get a hold of me on Facebook and other places, get a hold of me because I'm going to help you walk through it and get through it because you need a friend, man. When you're in that bad situation, you really need somebody to talk to, and who can just say, look, don't do it. You can make it. There's ways to cope, right? It says I feel, this is another thing that somebody might say, I feel relieved and less anxious after I cut. The emotional pain slowly slips away into the physical pain. And the problem being is that, people that do this sort of thing, then the pain comes back into their hearts and into their minds and emotions, and then the self-injury didn't do them any good at all. So this is the problem, right? That's why I say please reach out and get help. And professional help would be the real way to go, because there's obviously some underlying issues. I know with myself there certainly was. So, I really could have used some professional help at the time. And, I might in the future. And the thing is I've come a long way in my healing process, but I wasn't always like this. And, I didn't always have the ability to move past those feelings when I start feeling down, right? I didn't have the coping skills, but I guess over the years, thank God, I've been able to walk out most of it. But now, in the last, I would say 6 months, my healing has come around big time because I've reached out and met some people and talked to people. And that's what I suggest for you as well. If you're suffering, and please don't suffer in silence. There's people out there who've gone through similar situations, and they need support too. And they need, but then again, they're also a really good support system because they've been there, like most of my friends in my childhood and youth, right? Not so much childhood, but my youth, people I hung out with, a lot of them came from abusive homes, and so we would get together all the time, and we actually spent most of the time together because we didn't want to go home, and we'd support each other, and we knew we were there for each other, right? So it's so important to have some good friends, some people that really care. And I'm just going to read out some resources now. We have about a minute left. There's a new group called Purple Phoenix Survivors. It's a faith-based members-only women's support group for sexual or domestic abuses, and really any abuse, the childhood sexual abuse, child abuse. This is from a friend of mine has started this group, Donna, and it's called Purple Phoenix Survivors, HTTP Purple Phoenix, just like it sounds, .ning.com. I'm a member, and let me tell you what, this kind of groups, this is what I mean, and this is for the women only and members only, but, this is the type of groups where you can get real support, and that's just one, so I just wanted to mention. We have child abuse survivors. Stop Child Abuse. It's Linda Lee, my good friend. She's a survivor of child abuse. She was part of the Child Abuse Monument up here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and you can find her two child abuse groups, Stop Child Abuse and Stop Child Abuse Women Only, at lindalee.ning.com. So you just type that right in there, http lindalee.ning.com. dreamcatchers.ning.com. I belong to those as well. Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. What a great website. Lots of resources. I'm a volunteer, and I do promote their work and everything that they do. You just need to check out their website. They have some great info there. And Michelle Rosenthal, Heal My PTSD, www.healmyptsd.com. Awesome website. So make sure you reach out and get some help. And I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 5:30. We'll continue on with the topic. And if you need some information, please get a hold of me. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Reach out, get some help. Don't suffer in silence, okay? Bye-bye.